Romans chapter 10 verse 1. Let me help somebody. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. For they being ignorant of God's righteousness. A lot of people, even in our nation and in Africa, they're ignorant of God's righteousness. A lot of people in churches are ignorant of God's righteousness. So they are going about to establish their own righteousness. So they have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. Next verse. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth. Now let me read it for you from the Message translation. Believe me, friends, all I want for Israel is what's best for Israel. Salvation, nothing less. I want it with all my heart and pray to God for it all the time. I readily admit that the Jews are impressively energetic regarding God, but they are doing everything exactly backwards. Tarry night every Friday. Tithes. If you don't pay your tithes, it will be tithes. The weight of your seed determines your answer to prayer. So there's a message of a transactionary God. A God that is like a well-established contractor who cannot do anything until he is mobilized. If you don't give, you cannot get. So there's a business transaction. No more a relationship. You have to tap. You have to sow. Even when you pray, you must use something to corner God to answer. So we've been given an idea of an idol because it's in idol worship that you must give something to the deity for the deity to do something. A lot of us have not been liberated from African religion, from idol worship fully. We still come to God with the mindset of idol worship. We come to God with the mindset of African traditional religion. And sometimes some pastors are not also helping. They enshrine it the more. So you have to come with a red chicken, red fowl. You come with things to entice God. So you pray, but you're not sure God answered. So you bring a dangerous seed to slap God with it. You hear men of God tell you, if your offering does not move you, it cannot move God. So that means there is an amount of money that will move God. Because God is a pauper. He's so poor that money moves him. What an insult. He said, I readily admit that the Jews are impressively energetic regarding God, but they are doing everything exactly backwards. They don't seem to realize that this comprehensive setting things right, that is, salvation is God's business, and a most flourishing business it is. So right across the street, they set up their own salvation shops and noisily hawk their wares. After all these years of refusing to really deal with God on his terms, insisting instead on making their own deals, they have nothing to show for it. The earlier revelation was intended simply to get us ready for the Messiah, who then puts everything right for those who trust him to do it. No man by his works can be righteous. That's why Paul will say in Philippians chapter 3 verse 9, and be found in him, not having mine own righteousness, which is of the law, but that which is through the faith of Christ, the righteousness which is of God by faith. The Message translation of that verse, I didn't want some petty, inferior brand of righteousness that comes from keeping a list of rules when I could get the robust kind that comes from trusting Christ, God's own righteousness. Oh, glory to God. King James says, and be found in him, not having my own righteousness, which is of the law, but the righteousness which is of God by faith. Galatians 2:20. I have been crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by what? The faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Shall he find faith in God's righteousness on the earth? Not faith in what I have to give or faith in what I have to offer, but faith in God's righteousness, or faith in the blood, the sacrificial work of Christ.